Thank you, and hello, everyone. First of all, thank you, Mahdi, for the invitation. We finally had a collaboration together. It's okay. Well, another introduction. Hello, everyone, and thank you, Mahdi, for the invitation. We had finally a collaboration with you. So today, we have a special topic, which is the top trending in AI, which is MCP. And we will start by different phases of artificial intelligence that led to this new technology. So, before I forget, anybody can interrupt me at any time, and if English is not suitable for you, I can speak in French or in Arabic. I prefer Arabic over French. And in this presentation, by the way, this week, Microsoft was doing the same with Microsoft abilities, not my own abilities. So it was super interesting in France to see that. And everybody's talking about it. It will be the last thing in our presentation. But the 5 first points, we're gonna go fast through them because they are not trending topics. So first of all, we're gonna start by RAG introduction, then briefly advanced RAG, multi-RAG in Azure, then Agentic RAG. It used to be a super trending topic. It still is, but it's not the last technology. And then Azure RAG, and at the end is MCP. If you find it difficult, depends on your level of practicism, how much you practice your tech skills. But it's definitely not beginner. It's intermediate level. So, few years back, I think in 2016, not I think, I'm sure. In 2016, Google have released TensorFlow. Who knows TensorFlow?
Google released what?
TensorFlow framework. We only 3 people, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, nice. Otherwise, it will be almost impossible to talk about the rest. So, 2016, there was something special. Everybody's talking about YouTube recommendation system, and nobody understands how they are recommending the videos. In 2016, it was the only video platform. There were other video platforms, but like Dailymotion, but they were not dominant as YouTube. And at the time, in the tech industry, and people like me were asking ourselves, I was in an event with Itroazeux, Hamamet, and like the nerdy guys and the geeky guys like me were asking each other, what is this TensorFlow thing? At first we thought it's like the model they use, and then it turned out to be the framework. And for those who do not know it, TensorFlow is a framework to build deep learning models. It still have classical machine learning, but its main inception is to build deep learning models. So a deep learning model like CNN, who knows CNN?
CNN?
Yeah.
CNN, the
Model, AI model. Okay, how many? 4, I can see 3, 5, 6. Okay, not bad, not bad. So CNN is, I think, the most famous deep learning model. And before 2016, it takes PhD students 3 years to implement it. And then when you implement CNN, you can be a doctor of philosophy, and you get your PhD and you teach students. After that, CNN, it became like 3 lines of code with TensorFlow. Actually, it's more than 3 lines of code, but then there was Canadian researchers, and they founded a group. It's called Keras, and Keras is an abstraction of TensorFlow. And then it became super easy to build CNN. So in the past, and the past was not very far away, in the past, you spent 3 years building a deep learning model, and then you became a doctor. Today, anybody, absolutely anybody, you don't even need to code, you can build the same exact model that take PhD students 3 to 5 years. And by the way, the first people who have done that is Elias Sutskever, the one who built AlexNet, and AlexNet was based on CNN. So, who knows ChatGPT? Everybody. So, the guy that built ChatGPT is the one who did the CNN model with his professor. Who knows Jeffrey Hintington, something like this? He got a PhD last year in artificial intelligence and something else. They don't give it in AI, but something plus AI. And he was his his professor. So the professor and the student built the best technology in deep learning. A few years later, fast forward, Elias Hotzkever and his team at OpenAI, they built ChatGPT. So we transition from something super complex. It takes a PhD student 3 to 5 years to build a deep learning model, to a framework, they can do it in a few lines of code, then to another library that make an abstraction of the framework. So in 1 line or 2 line, you can build it. And that was, I think, 2018. After that, it started the tech AI developing hype. I started in 2019. Who was doing AI in 2019? Okay, great. Only 2 of us. So 2019, I thought, go ahead. 2019, I thought, this is good for me. It have algorithms and it have coding, and it's a new technology. And it can survive for the next 5 years, and it keeps the hype, which was a promise fulfilled. Now, if we build on top of all these stories, what do we get? We get that one on the wall. It's LLM. In 2017, there was a breakthrough. It is the transformers. The transformers are the technology, transformers with attention has the technology that enabled us to have ChatGPT. It's based on the research of 2012 of Ilya and Geoffrey. And the novel idea of Sam Altman is to put all human knowledge into transformers. And that's how we obtained OpenAI. But OpenAI has been in the making for at least 5 years. And I know everybody gets bored. I hate this topic of ChatGPT. So you use ChatGPT, you know how great it is, but it has its own limitations. In my previous interventions with SIPCOM and the colleagues of Mahdi, I talked about that thoroughly with a few other universities. So ChatGPT is LLM, and LLM is ChatGPT based on transformer technology. Beneath it, you have CNN, and I already talked to you about the most prominent figures in the industry. After that, LLM, if you are in a company, you cannot use LLM. If you are in a pharmaceutical company or finance like me or supply chain, you have sensitive data. If you have sensitive data and you put it in ChatGPT, Sam Altman will steal your data. And I was talking to some people, and they told me that their research, PhD research, was now trained by ChatGPT. So when they search about where they have searched in the past, they already have their data. So they stole people's data. And they're still stealing people's data. But imagine if you are in a bank and they steal your bank account. Which brings us to the next question. Who have a bank account? Okay. Mahdi, you don't have a bank account. Good. Who have a bank account? Okay. Okay, all of you. Now imagine your bank account, the bank that you are a client with, they put your data in ChatGPT and ask it questions like, can this person pay the mortgage? Can this person pay the loan? And they drag and drop the data into the LLM. What's going to happen? OpenAI will steal your data, so other people can see your details. So if you do not have money in your bank account and other people search for you by name, they can find out that you don't have the money. And this is why in the digital transformation, everybody's talking about it like everybody. And they don't do it because there is a big risk. So if in my bank, which is Biat, and this is not a publicity, they drag and drop my data in there to do some analysis about my big fortune. In the future, other people can see my personal details. And it's the same for pharmaceutical company. If you have a bad disease and it's in your personal record, which is protected by the government and international laws, the LLM will absorb that data too and give it to other people. And I have seen that. I have seen things that the LLM should not show me, which you can call prompt injection. So we introduced something new, which is RAG architecture. This RAG architecture is the most basic, and it stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. So it's like building your personal large language model. And that's the most basic vanilla use case. If you are in a company, you cannot use that. But if you are a student or you're doing a research and you don't have sensitive data, you can use it. So the difference between a RAG, a retrieval augmented generation, and LLM, a RAG is like your personal LLM. The ChatGPT is not your personal assistant because it cannot store your data, but the RAG can. So it's a personal LLM. These are some details about the mechanism of how things work on the inside. And basically, you always have a vector store. Who knows SQL or MySQL? OK, most of you. They are databases that are based on rows and columns. And did you raise your question for your hand? OK. So they are columns and rows. And they are very expensive to query. So if you want to query them, you will lose a lot of money and a lot of time. So basically, there is a type of special database called vector database. And vector database only have numerical data. And that numerical data seems like 0.535609. And it's very long sequences of numbers that can translate human knowledge. So when you say professor and director, they have almost the same embedding space. So in very basic terms, mathematically, they are very proximate. That's how the new databases are working. So we are not dealing with the traditional database. We are dealing with new technology. This will enable us to use LLM and RAG. Advanced RAGs emerged in few weeks and few months from the inception of the LLMs. And we already have multiple architecture for that. And I've been working on this for, I think, 2 years. It was one of the reasons I was recruited again in the place I'm working with. They have investment banking data, and that investment banking data should be secured. And there is no way to secure that. So the project I'm currently working with, plus many other projects, is how to secure and build our own RAG. And you talked about a special thing. Can we build our own AI? And in the future, they will impose money on us to buy the AI. It happens all the time. They give it for free, like cocaine, and then you will be addicted and die.
No, but it will change, believe me.
It already changed. You need to buy this very, very expensively. And that's what we currently do. So every day we burn a couple hundreds of euros because we are buying that technology. And in the future, it's going to be even worse. So like you said, when we're going to build our own AI, we actually can do that. We have the technical capabilities. We have the people. What we don't have is a clear strategy and vision. So everybody's talking about digital transformation, but they don't bring people like me to help them build those kind of things. So it's a very, very relevant question. I hope governmental agencies take care of it. I think it's now up to us to figure that out. But at least in companies, we are building those products. Now, if we see those architectures, they look fancy because they are fancy, but they have their own limitations again. If you build a RAG, which is your personal version of LLM, what's going to happen is that your RAG only is limited by the data you feed it, and it still cannot make its own decision. So we want to break from that. By the way, everybody's talking about RAG and it's still very trendy. It's just, I did a lot of presentations on it, so I will move to something more advanced. If you want to build large-scale products, you need to move to, for example, cloud. And here you can have Cloud Azure, and Azure will give you some resources. If you are a student, it can give you 200 euros, and you can test with those 200 euros. You can go to Google Cloud if you are a student, it can give you $300 for 2 or 3 months. So you can navigate these technologies, and the documentation is excellent. Anybody can understand it. Now, to implement it in a company is the very challenging part. The architecture, the cloud, that's called the cloud-native architecture. The cloud-native architecture, if you integrate it with the company that you work with, it will be multiplied by 3 to 4 times easily. 3 to 4 times complexity and other services integrated together. So most students now, they worry about their future in tech. Do they find a job? My advice, and I usually don't advise people, is to learn as much as you can. we have a big challenge of integrating systems together, and you need to understand all the basics. It's not easy, but it's feasible. And I'm training very young people to do that. Very young people. It sounds very old. Now, the most trendy topic for the late 2024 is Agentic RAG. So, what is an agent? An agent is an LLM that you can put it in a special environment and can navigate the environment. Who played Super Mario before? Everybody. So, now with LLM you can play Super Mario. Not now. 2 years ago with LLM you can play Super Mario. The problem is it still cannot make a smart decision by itself. So we need an LLM fine-tuned to the environment. It goes to the chimneys, it goes up and down, and kills the enemies and kills the dragons and the monster to save the princess. The beauty of this is LLM is very limited, but if you configure it enough and you give it the knowledge of its environment, you transform it to an agent. So if you work in finance and you want to buy a house, you will have a data warehouse with all the mortgages and loans of people for decades and decades. That's your environment, and you can build an agent on top of that. So what is an agent? An agent is a deep learning model with an environment and a policy. It's very known in reinforcement learning because it's the basics of reinforcement learning. And there is a book from Barton and Sutton from a big university in Canada, I think Alberta. And these people, they modelize the entire world into 3 main concepts. You have the grid, which is your environment. You have the policy, how to behave with the grid. Now I'm in a conference. The policy is to wear a button shirt and speak professionally. And the grid is, and the environment is the conference. And there is a punishment and reward. So the agent is like a human being. If it does something good, you give it a reward. If it does something wrong, you punish it. That's how an agent works. So you can have an agent for your Gmail, for your Slack, and you can have an agent for scraping web. And you can have agents to play Super Mario. And if you can play Super Mario, you can play all Atari games. And you can play even more sophisticated games like Dota and LoL. Who knows Dota and LoL? You know everything, good. I like that. So, Dota and LoL are very, very sophisticated. It was to be believed that the computer can never win them. It's more sophisticated than Go, and it's more sophisticated than chess. For me, it was impossible to beat them, but in 2017, Google released AlphaGo, and it beats Go, and then beats AlphaZero beats Atari and Shogi and Dota, which is pretty incredible, but still nobody talks about that. So that's an agent. The big breakthrough is how to put an agent that interacts with multiple environments. So now you can take Super Mario and you put it into Formula One, and Mario can beat the Formula One. It's crazy, but that's the technology we have. It's not science fiction. Now Super Mario can beat the rally, can beat the Formula One, can beat anything you want it to beat, because it can work in multi-environment. So it's an agent that can interact with multi-environments. And the algorithms is dating to 2019, but now it have LLM, and LLM makes it easier. And the core basis in these technologies are reinforcement learning. Good. So far, so in 1 to 2 years, we have many libraries for agentic AI, but I already gave a conference on agentic AI, so I will go to the last point. So you can check this agentic AI framework, and I advise you to check the ones with video games, because it's very exciting to see how a robot can play a video game and always beat human beings. Sorry. Good. Now, why I'm talking about Microsoft Azure? Microsoft Azure is just an example. You can use any major cloud provider, or you can build your own cloud, which will take you millions and millions and millions and many years, and you might be successful. Many companies do it. Many banks do it. You need deep pockets, and you will be the proprietary of your own technology. And I advise against it. Unless you are a big bank or something big, don't do it. And the alternative is to use cloud environments to build your RAGs and to build your agents. And this is what I advise students. Please learn everything, because if you are in an interview, they look for somebody to build a product. They don't have the time to upscale you unless you are lucky. And knowing cloud services, by the way, I get my certifications when I was a student. So I'm not flexing about me going to real life and like my employer pays for my certifications. As a student, I paid for my own certification to get a job. So if you learn this, you can build products. If you can build products, you can get hired. If you get hired, you can build an even more good products, and you stay, like they say in Tunis, à l'écoute du marché. These services to learn, it's easy. To integrate them, it's medium. To build a product can be hard. But it's doable. Everything is open source, and everything is documented. In here, what you see is the architecture behind Agentic RAG. Almost Agentic RAG. But the topic of today's presentation is MCP. So it's not enough to have LLMs. It's not enough to have deep learning. It's not enough to have CNN. It's not enough to have RAG. It's not enough to have cloud. It's not enough to have agentic AI. You need MCP, and why is that? MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. And if I build something special, for example, I build a system that interacts with booking.com, and it can scrape the data and recommend me the best booking in the city or any place in the world. I build my agent to interact with that environment. Then I can put it in a public space where people can download it as a server. So if you want to have booking details, you don't need to build it yourself. You need to only download it. So on your phones, you have Play Store. In Play Store, you download whatever you want from your applications. And those are people who developed mobile applications for you, so you don't develop your own application. And in here, we go back to l'exemple de calculatrice. You develop that, and then you put it for other people to use. And if it interacts with the internet, then there is a server connection. So your agent is not inside the bank. Your agent is agnostic to the system where you are. So now you can download Super Mario to go take security exams for you, for example. I have an agent specified, an agent expert in certain domain, but it can play in multiple grounds. And this is ready to download from the internet if somebody developed and uploaded it in an online store. Before, we had this complex code, and this complex code is basically scrapping Google Flights, scrapping Expedia, scrapping airlines, and building APIs. I've done that for 1.5 years. It's not very fun stuff. I loved it, but for most people, there are a lot of issues with the pipelines. And then with the MCP, I built it once, I upload it. It's more than API. It's a server that interacts with different environment, and I can plug it like a USB. So I have my phone, and you have your agent, and you just plug it in. It's plug and play mode. So you build your own agent, for example, a course, for example, AI course, and that agent can be plugged anywhere, and you can play with it. It's a very scary technology because it replaces a lot of developers, but since we are talking about the subject, we can take advantage of it now, yeah, and see what happens in the future. Google I/O was, I think, a few days ago. Microsoft Build was a few days ago. The two biggest software companies in the world, they were covering the MCP topic, and this plug-and-play agentic RAG models that are agnostic to the environment when you deploy whatever you want to deploy. So thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Muwaffaq. Thank you for your presentation. Who have a question from the audience?
Hi, thank you so much for your presentation. I actually have two questions. The first one is not really a question, it's most like a discussion point. You said that ChatGPT does not store your data, but it does. Not directly if you ask it, if you store my data, they will lie, of course,
Yeah.
but DeepSeek or ChatGPT does store your data. And even if you give it permission and you go back and ask it about something you said a week ago, it still will reference that. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify that point because I take that privacy pretty seriously because
Yeah.
it's our data. My second question is about...
Let me first quickly answer the first one. The problem is the context window.
I'm sorry?
The problem with ChatGPT is the context window. It cannot store all of your data. What it does is summarize the highlights and then reuse the highlights. It's a sneaky way. So it's storing your data, but still you cannot build professional products with it.
Yeah, but for example, for DeepSeek, as an example, we know that the Chinese government does not have our data and stores it for their own.
They already know you, yeah.
Yeah. So my second question is about the agent, the RAG agent. You said, for example, if you have a RAG agent for Super Mario, you can use it for Formula One, and Mario can beat Formula One. But you also said that it is personalized. So if I'm building a RAG and it's personalized for Mario, how can I apply it on Formula One? Well, they are two different things.
Well, to be honest, is a bit exaggerated example, but the concept is there is Super Mario Karts, but it's a different game from the chimneys, and it can navigate. So the concept is if it outpaces other people and it does not crash, it's in the lead.
Yeah.
So you go from Super Mario Kart to Formula One and still can beat it.
So it's the same basics, it's just a different
Same basics. And even with agentic AI, you still need to tailor what you use. It's not a direct plug and play. You still need to tweak it a little bit.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Emna, for this intervention.
J'aurais voulu qu'il y ait des témoignages de cas d'intelligence artificielle, particulièrement dans la gestion. Et moi, je vais en faire un. Mon fils est à Berlin. Il m'a raconté une fois que la banque lui a téléphoné pour lui dire que le système d'intelligence artificielle a bloqué sa carte de crédit. Pourquoi? Parce qu'il suspecte qu'il y ait des opérations frauduleuses sur sa carte. Ça, c'est extraordinaire.
Yes.
Et ça, c'est un cas d'intelligence. Les témoignages comme ça explique aux gens l'importance de l'intelligence artificielle dans les processus. Et donc, ils l'ont bloqué sa carte, ils l'ont fait venir, ils l'ont pris sa carte, ils lui ont fait une autre carte. Pourquoi? Parce que lui, il a acheté sur Internet. Et le call center, c'est lequel il a acheté, est en Asie du Sud, je pense. Donc, ils ont pris sa carte, son numéro de carte, ils ont utilisé, je pense qu'ils lui ont subtilisé quelque chose d'autour de $300. Mais la banque, regardez bien en plus l'importance de la responsabilité des banques, ils lui ont restitué son argent, ils ont bloqué sa carte, lui ont fait une nouvelle carte, ils vont lui restituer son argent, ils lui ont dit qu'on suspecte qu'il y ait eu des opérations frauduleuses sur le compte. Ça, c'est extraordinaire. J'aurais aimé que, je ne sais pas s'il y a d'autres personnes qui ont des témoignages de l'importance de l'intelligence artificielle dans des processus de gestion ou quelconque. C'est très, très important.
بوب بدينا بالعربي بعد بالفرنسية دونك باش نكمل بالعربي. السيستم هذاك كان تعطى بيه ذمه والا fraudulent transaction flagging. I built that system myself for the bank. I actually built it for 2 different departments. تفلاقي لي ترانزاكسيون كي هو يمشي لازي يعمل بيرتشيس من غادي لازي عنده سكور نيجاتيف وكل ما يطلع الامونت تاع البيرتشيس يطلع سكور نيجاتيف دونك سكور لازي نيجاتيف مع هو في اوروبا مع $300 ديجا مونطون ان بو الفي دونك سكور نيجاتيف يزيد يعلى ومن بعد تعمل تريننج تاع المودلز نتاعك وتتبلوكا سوف كو نحن نخدموا مع corporates دونك you have millions of dollar transactions and you block them بسويفت system. It's totally doable. I built 2 different systems on that. So,
OK.
yeah.
Merci, Mouafaq. Vous avez une
Welcome.
autre question de la part de notre étudiant, Daniel. Ça sera en français, en arabe, bien
As
en
you
anglais.
like.
Merci pour la parole accordée. Je vous ai très bien suivi au tout début. Alors, ma question est la suivante. J'aimerais savoir quel algorithme permet la coordination entre agents autonomes dans un système agent RAG. Parce que je vous ai entendu au tout début, vous avez parlé des agents RAG, mais j'aimerais savoir quel genre d'algorithmes permettent cette coordination en question.
Excellente question. Ben, ça dépend du contexte que tu as. Par exemple, si tu fais, par exemple, de fraudulent transaction, tu vas stopper une transaction suspecte. Tu peux utiliser, par exemple, pour ton agent, le XGBoost. C'est un modèle de decision tree qui est un peu avancé et peut détecter ce genre de trucs. Donc, ton agent peut être un modèle qui se base sur le decision tree. Et tu l'intègres à ton environnement. Si on a un exemple spécifique d'environnement, on va avoir des algorithmes spécifiques pour l'environnement. Donc, c'est grosso modo ça. Mais pour donner une réponse précise, c'est un peu difficile. On doit avoir un peu de détails.